Bulletproofing the cloud. So first off, who am I? I've been working in InfoSec for about 11 years, and I had about 5 years of hobby work before that. The primary interests for me are penetration testing, intrusion detection, and log correlation. I'm currently employed as an InfoSec generalist at a cloud provider, and I've previously worked at several Fortune 100 companies. After this talk, if you should need to reach me, you can get me at blindedscience@gmail.com. So what is this? The idea of cloud is it's not new anymore. A lot of people really understand what cloud is at this point. The problem we have is less of an understanding issue and more of knowing how cloud affects what we do day to day. A lot of the companies that are in the cloud space are approaching it as a very traditional type of environment. They treat it just like they would any other environment they put servers into. But my research that built this particular presentation is primarily a response to last year's presentation, which was Cloud Computing, a Weapon of Mass Destruction. I'll get into that in a few minutes. And a dissection of what the current security postures of the cloud providers out there, and a proposal for what they could do to improve their posture. So what is the cloud? And this is a very dictionary type response to that question. I'm just going to let you read it. I'm not going to go into it in depth. But in general, people, as they understand cloud, it's the use of shared resources to accomplish some sort of task. And we've got a variety of different things. We've got SaaS, we've got infrastructure as a service. For the purpose of this talk, I'm really focusing on cloud as infrastructure as a service. Or SaaS in a lesser case. Just to keep everyone on a lighthearted side, I want to keep this fun. So cloud is very serious business for a lot of people, and for us this is a picture of a kitten. All right, so first off, last year we had a talk about a weapon of mass destruction, but prior to that we had the DEF CON 17 talk, which was clobbering the cloud. Clobbering the cloud really focused on using, or I shouldn't say it focused on, but it had an example of using the Salesforce environment to build a NIC2 based scanner. So they showed a tool called SIF2 that was run from the Salesforce environment to scan remote servers, which obviously is not what that was designed to do. Last year, though, we had cloud computing, weapon of mass destruction. And again, like I said, this talk is primarily built as a response to that particular talk. During that talk, they showed that cloud providers essentially aren't really doing much internal policing of their clients. Additionally, there's kind of an unofficial policy. While they have an official policy saying there's no scanning from the cloud, the unofficial policy is as long as complaints aren't received, nothing's going to be done about it. So what's wrong with the cloud? Why is there a problem here at all? The first problem we have is easy access. Most cloud providers build their environment so that people can get into it and out of it very quickly and easily. That allows us to have other problems, such as anonymity and fraud. And the issue of being anonymous isn't necessarily a problem, except for the fact that it leads to fraud. A lot of people use cloud resources, and I'm sure we've probably got a few of you up in here who have used cloud resources in ways they weren't intended to be used. And some of that's fraudulent, some of it isn't. That leads to another problem, though. You end up with contention for resources. Again, cloud really is an environment that's meant to be shared. So when you have one client who's misbehaving, it can affect the others through contention. The cloud provider really faces problems with damage to the infrastructure. As I mentioned, fraudulent customers. Fraudulent customers frequently turn out to be using false credit cards that can't be charged or get charged back, so that you've used cloud resources without paying for them. And their kind of proven inability to address their own security as based off of the previous presentations. The client, however, faces another series of problems, and if you are a cloud consumer, these things should concern you. One compromised client of a multi-tenant environment can affect others, and that gets back to contention. The larger problem, though, for most of the customers is that they are no longer in control of their entire IT infrastructure. They've offloaded that to someone, especially, again, SaaS and IaaS, So that a user who's compromised may not have any capability of knowing they're compromised and may never know they're compromised. So I'm going to get into now what most of the cloud providers are doing in this space. The providers are treating cloud security as a traditional hosting environment. That's pretty straightforward. That seems logical in most cases. Clients are given a virtual firewall with inline IPS services, and this is getting to the IaaS. Providers frequently offer a vulnerability assessment for free, and this is great. It shows the providers are at least somewhat concerned for their clients, and the fact that they're giving away this service in a lot of cases is a good positive move forward. Each client's virtual instance is independent, which means the clients are essentially fending for themselves with no coordinated enterprise security. So the problems with the conventional solutions that a lot of cloud providers are doing, IPS first of all, it's very difficult for providers to offer a prepackaged IPS that works for all clients and won't block legitimate traffic, and that's pretty straightforward. When you put together an environment where people can drop in and out of it very quickly, it's tough to give them something that's a cookie cutter that will work for everyone. IPS in particular is a danger because you're talking about blocking traffic, which in some cases may be legitimate traffic. Information coming from an IPS is frequently incomplete, so you have encryption that keeps you from seeing the data inside the IPS, and a lack of awareness of what's going on the endpoint. The last problem with IPS is that it has to work at line speeds. Very complex correlations aren't possible. What I mean by very complex, a lot of the IPS solutions that are out there do a really good job of doing vulnerability assessment to IPS type correlation and other basic correlations. When I talk about complex correlations, I'm talking about behavioral correlations that go back months. The IPS can't keep that amount of data in memory in some cases, or it can't look at it quickly enough to make line speed decisions. So it has to make sometimes incomplete decisions. Then we get to the problem of a traditional network design. Really in a traditional network design, and I'm sure as security practitioners we've all dealt with this in the past, you have the turtle shell approach. Hard on the outside, soft on the inside. So you're focusing on your external threats. You're assuming the internal hosts are trusted, and beyond that, your clients really aren't benefiting from security data that's being generated by the other clients. So, how is that working? Now, what I did is I have the access to a series of logs from a variety of my clients. So I took those logs and I did probably what isn't exactly a scientific analysis of it. What I looked for were the large cloud providers, hosts that recurred from those large cloud providers, and how long it took after I sent an automated alert to that provider that there was something wrong with their network for them to respond to it. What I had to do is, because most providers don't respond to those types of emails, I had to make guesses on how they're performing on their side. That may lead to worst case scenarios. So I would look for a host that occurred. If I sent out an email and they responded to it, I would never see that host again. That data got thrown out because I couldn't be sure. Also, if I saw a host and I saw the host again and then I never saw the host again after that, I couldn't be sure that the provider had actually fixed it. I just had to make guesses based off the data I was seeing. So I can't say for certain what the security posture is inside of a company, but I can guess the nature of the security posture based on behaviors of the network and their personnel. Guesses were based on how frequently a particular host contacted my network and how long it took for it to stop. So all my data is from the first 6 months of 2011. The first one is Amazon Web Services. Now, Amazon Web Services I had a single recurring host from, and given their size, that's probably a really good indicator that they're very responsive to emails or complaints of any sort about hosts on their network. This is the raw data, and I'm going to explain what this is here. This is coming from essentially a SIM. Each of these is 2 entries related to one event, and I color-coded them so you can understand they're 2 different things. In this particular case, what this is it's a sweep of my network for open Tomcat servers, and then following up an attempt to brute force those servers. So based on this, we know Amazon's response time to complaints and incidents is probably at least 14.5 hours, because that's the amount of time that occurred between the 2 incidents and when I complained about them to Amazon. Next up is Rackspace, which acquired SliceHost. There were 10 recurring hosts from Rackspace. Now, I should go into this noting rack space. I can't tell from the outside unless I do a scan of their network whether these are actually cloud devices or traditional devices. But again, this is more on their responsiveness to complaints and less about their cloud particularly. So this is an event from Rackspace that represented an SSH scan of my network. Rackspace's response wasn't as good as Amazon's, but I'm sure a lot of us dealing with incident response know that 48 hours is probably a little longer than we want it to be, but it's not completely unreasonable, because in a lot of cases you're trying to contact customers, verify what you're seeing, make sure that there was actually an abuse of the network going on, and sometimes that can take some time. The next slide I'm going to show you is from a provider where, and again, I know some of you are in the crowd here. If you're looking for services that won't be shut off no matter how bad you are, go to SoftLayer. So I had 5 recurring hosts from SoftLayer. All of them spanned multiple days. And as far as I can tell, SoftLayer never responds to complaints or incidents, or at the very least, you can measure their response in months. I had 2 pieces of data here. Now, I'll clarify. The first one is actually an ICMP sweep that they do of my network every month. The second one is an SSH sweep. So I can understand that maybe if you get a complaint about an ICMP sweep, I'm not really sure why SoftLayer feels the need to scan my IP space once a month and ignore my complaints about it every month. But I can kind of understand that someone may say, okay, well, it's just an ICMP sweep. I'm not too worried about that. I'm going to ignore it. But if you look at the other case, it's a little more obvious, the SSH scan. It took them 9.5 days to respond to that. That's a week and a half. That's not the greatest response time, and I can't even be sure that they shut the host down. The host may have just given up trying to talk to me. So, how can we tighten it up? Clients should have their own IDS firewall, but hosts that are attacking multiple clients should be detected and shunned by the provider. Clients aren't capable of sharing information with each other, or if they were, it would take a lot of effort on their part. The provider is actually in a unique situation where they can see all the traffic on the network if they try. So as a provider, if you've got a series of systems on the outside that are attacking pretty much all your customers, those customers may not have any idea that they're part of a coordinated attack, but you should, because you can see all of it. So the provider should be taking steps to help the clients protect themselves. They're not. The provider should also be looking for intentionally malicious internal clients. Consolidating events from all client environments to look for enterprise-threatening external agents improves things from the outside. But actually, if you look at how the providers are attacking security in the cloud, the single largest unaddressed threat is the client networks. The client networks are a danger to both the provider and the other clients, again because of contention and damage to the infrastructure. So why aren't the providers doing this, or what challenges are the providers being faced with? Well, the first one is frequent, rapid client changes. The nature of cloud is such that clients come and go all the time. You can't really be sure what they're doing with your network, and they're probably all doing something different altogether. Clients are going to have a wide variety of services, users, and ways of utilizing their resources. Your clients are in an unknown state. And by unknown, most of the clients are probably going to be normal, law-abiding citizens. They're going to sit on your network, use your resources, maybe run a web server, a database server, things like that. But you can't be certain of that. Some of the clients are going to be bad guys. Some of the clients aren't going to be bad guys, but they're going to be compromised by bad guys. So you've got a whole host of clients who are in unknown